ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس صدق الله العظيم. Allah Azze ve Celle buyuruyor ki her taraf fesat oldu, bozuldu.
Allah Almighty states that every place has been spoiled, every place is filled with badness and has become bad.
Deniz ve kara her taraf bozuldu.
Every place is corrupt, whether the seas or whether on the surface of this earth.
Allah Azze ve Celle temiz yaratmıştı.
In fact, Allah Almighty created everything in a clean manner.
Her şey güzel yaratmıştı.
And Allah Almighty created everything beautifully.
Nasıl bozuldu, nasıl böyle bu vaziyete geldi diyor Allah Azze ve Celle.
But how did things break apart? How did things get spoiled and corrupted and manipulated to the extent that we now experience?
İnsanların yaptığıyla
It is because of what people do.
Bu koskoca denizler, okyanuslar, yerler, her taraf temiz yer kalmadı.
There's no clean place any longer, whether it's the huge seas and gigantic oceans, or whether it's any part on the surface of this world. There's no place that has not been corrupted by humankind.
Temiz yer işte şöyle yapıyoruz, böyle temiz lik yapıyoruz, böyle temiz gıda yiyoruz diye insanlar söylüyor ama
There's no place that remains clean. People claim to live a clean life and they say we pay attention to eating good food, eating clean food and doing clean things. Yet this world, there's no place in this world that remains clean.
Esasen yani hepsi kirlidir.
Everything has become dirty.
Kötüdür,
Everything has become dirty and bad,
iyi değildir.
and everything is there's nothing there's nothing that is in a good state anymore.
Allah Azze ve Celle'nin söylediği bu mesele şimdi ayan bayan çıkıyor.
And this, what Allah Almighty has informed us about in the Holy Quran by stating that everything has been in the seas and on land has been corrupted, is now becoming more and more apparent and is becoming visible everywhere.
Alim olmaya, bilim adamı olmaya gerek yok.
There's no need to be a scholar or to be a scientist to see what's obvious.
Her tarafta kirli olmayan bir şey kalmadı.
There's no longer and there's nothing that remains clean or pure.
Bu neden insanların elinden?
And why is that? It is because of what people did and do.
Allah Azze ve Celle en güzelini yarattı.
Allah Almighty created everything in the most beautiful manner.
En güzelini verdi.
And Allah Almighty gave us the most beautiful things in the most beautiful way.
En güzelini yapın diyor.
And He Almighty ordered us to do what is most beautiful.
Allah Azze ve Celle. Ona karşı şeytan var.
But there is Shaitan.
Şeytanın ona en kötüsünü yapın diyor.
And it is Shaitan who wants people to do the complete opposite. Shaitan wants people to do the worst things,
En pisini yapın.
to do the dirtiest things,
En işe zarar verecek şekilde yapın diyor.
and Shaitan wants people to do those things which cause harm and damage the most.
İnsanoğlu da Allah akıl vermiş.
Allah Almighty has given humankind a mind to think.
Fikir vermiş.
Allah Almighty has given humankind reason.
Aklını kullansın diye.
And Allah Almighty gave us a mind in order to think and to recognize.
O aklı yaratmış insanoğlu için.
And mind and reason are a creation by Allah Almighty so that people may think.
İnsanoğlunun aklı hiçbir mahlukatta onun kadar büyük yok.
And there's nothing in creation that is similar or comparable compared to the human being. And there's nothing like the human mind.
Koca dev gibi şeyler bakarsın.
And when you look at what humanity has produced based on their minds,
O beyin ufacık şey.
and you look at the human's mind and you look at the brain, which is so small compared to all those great things people did.
Yani insan hem akıl, sırf akıl, baştaki akıl değil, kalpteki akıl da var.
However, it's not only a mind a person has in its brains, but a person also has a consciousness, a mind and awareness in his heart.
Kalpten baştaki akıl iyi göstermesi lazım.
And it is the awareness and the reason within our hearts that needs to guide our thinking in our minds.
İyi gösterir ama onu kapatan şey nefis var.
Reason within our hearts guides our minds and shows our mind what is good. But there's Shaitan who wants to make our minds in our brains not to listen to the reason within our hearts.
Şeytan var. O insanın aklını kapatır.
It is Shaitan who tries to veil and cover humans' thoughts and minds,
Kötü gösterir.
so that people are being prevented from distinguishing what is right and what is wrong.
Kötüyü iyi gösterir.
And thus Shaitan makes the bad appear good, and likewise he makes the good appear bad.
İyi yapmaya kalkarsan sana mani olurlar.
And when you try to do something good, they prevent you from doing that good thing.
Kötü yapacaksan hiçbir mani yok. Bilakis seni alkışlarlar.
However, when you do something bad, there is no prevention, and they even encourage you and applaud you if you do something bad.
Sana methiyeler yaparlar.
And they award you for the evil or the badness you do.
Sana yardım ederler.
And they even support you if you do something bad.
Kötülük etmek için. Yani bu artık o kadar açık görünüyor ki.
And this is a state and condition that is obvious and can be seen clearly.
Herkes görüyor.
And everyone can see.
Gene herkes nefsine mani olamıyor.
Yet people are unable to prevent themselves from following their egos.
Onların peşinden, çoğu insanlar onların peşinden gidiyor.
Instead, the majority of people follow their egos and follow those bad advices and bad encouragements.
Onların peşinden gitmek sonu kötü olan bir yola gitmiş oluyor.
But if you follow the bad ones, then you must know that you are following a way that will end up in badness.
Allah Azze ve Celle bu dünyanın halini herkes görsün diye ilim adamları, bilim adamları ne varsa
And Allah Almighty created all kinds of means so that people become aware and so that they may realize they are scientists, they are scholars.
Araştırıyorlar, işte bu kadar dünyayı kirlettik, bu kadar denizleri kirlettik.
And there are people who do research, and it is now something that is well known by everyone and throughout the entire world, to what extent this world has been polluted and put into a bad condition and state.
Hiçbir yerde artık temiz bir şey kalmadı dedikleri halde,
And even though it is well established that there is no longer any place that is clean or that remains natural,
gene insanoğlu aynı şekilde kirletmeye, pisletmeye devam ediyor.
nevertheless, despite all these alerts, people continue on their bad ways and they continue to make this world become even more and more dirty.
Bu nereden geliyor? Manevi pislikten maddi pisliğe aynı kanaldan gidiliyor. Aynı yoldan gidiliyor.
And what is the source of this dirtiness? It is because of the spiritual dirtiness within people, and that spiritual dirtiness within people translate into this physical dirtiness.
Temiz insan oturduğu, içtiği, yediği şeyler de temiz olur.
A clean and pure person is not only clean by his words, but also is clean by his action, which means that he pays attention to what he eats and drinks and where he lives and makes sure that everything in his environment is clean.
Temiz olmak için Allah yolunda, Peygamber yolunda, Allah'a inanarak, Peygamber sallallahu aleyhi ve sellem inanarak o yolda gitmek insana maddi manevi temizlik verir.
And it is by following the way of Allah Almighty, as shown by our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that makes us obtain cleanliness and that purifies us. And it is by following the way of Allah Almighty, as shown by our beloved Prophet, that we become clean and pure.
Allah Azze ve Celle Kur'an'da da müşrikler temiz değil diyor. İşte ortalıkta.
And Allah Almighty describes the disbelievers in the Holy Quran, and when he describes them, that he mentions that the disbelievers, they are not in a clean state.
İnnemâ müşrikûne necas. Müşrikler neşin necasettir. Çünkü manevi günahların necasetidir.
And why are they dirty? They are dirty of their spiritual dirtiness and of the dirtiness of their sins.
Onların emrettikleri kötülük.
All they want to happen is badness.
Sen her halt yap, küçük büyük tanıma.
And they tell you, do whatever you like, do not pay to whether it's bad what you do, but do it. It doesn't matter whether it's a major sin or a minor sin. Do whatever you like, they say.
Ama kalkıp da helalinden evlenirsen seni kabahatli bulurlar.
But if you do something good, they blame you. For example, if you get engaged and married, they blame you for it.
Sana ceza verirler.
And they punish you for following a good life.
Ama öteki türlü her türlü şey yap ama sakın helalinden olmasın.
However, on the other side, they allow you to do anything that is related to badness or evil, and all they care about is to prevent you from doing something good, and they encourage you to do all kinds of evil.
Helalinden olursa büyük kabahat.
If it is halal what you do, then you are being blamed and punished.
Şeytan çok kızacak.
Because Shaitan will be very angry with you if you do halal.
Nikah yaptın çok kızar. Zina yaptın çok sevinir.
Shaitan will be very angry with you if you get married. Shaitan will be very happy if you commit adultery.
Bilmem ne yaptın ona da sevinir. Ne kadar akla hayala gelmeyen kötülükler varsa bu zamanda zahir oldu.
And they want you to make Shaitan happy. And for that purpose, they want you to do all kinds of evil things which you can think of and even be things beyond your imagination.
Çıktı zamanımız yani Ne için böyle çıktı? Çünkü
And we now live in the end of times, in a time where all kinds of bad and evil things are constantly popping up.
ahir zamanda olduk. Bütün kötülükler çıkması lazım ki
And there is wisdom and a reason behind why this is happening, because we now live in the end of times, and these evil things need to appear.
temizlik olsun diye.
Because these evil things need to come to the surface so that the purge may come and things will then be purified again.
Kötülükler, pislikler görünmezse temizlemeye ihtiyaç yok.
If you can't see the dirty things, you can clean them.
Ama şimdi bütün bu kötülükleri çıkarttılar.
Now they have made these bad and evil things to come to the surface and to become visible.
Çünkü ne için? Onlara dur diyecek kimse yok.
And currently there's no one who can prevent and stop that badness from happening.
Bütün dünya şimdi şeytanın hakimiyetindedir.
This entire world is now under the control of Shaitan.
Onun için ona karşı gelenleri cezalandırırlar.
And we now live in such a world where those who oppose Shaitan are being punished.
İster devlet olsun, ister ferd olsun, ister cemaat olsun. Kim olursa onların yolundan gitmese onları kabul etmezler. Onlara
Whether it's on a state level or whether it's on a personal level or on a community level, those who do not align with them are being punished.
her türlü eziyet verirler.
And those who do not align with them are made to undergo all kinds of suffering.
Onun için bu olacak, yani bu zamanımızın olması lazım olan şeydir.
Again, these things have to happen as required by the time we live in.
Yani bu ahir zaman tam ortasında oluyoruz.
For this is now the end of times we now live in, and we are amidst it.
Onun kötülüğünü herkes hissediyor.
And everyone now experiences the badness of the end of times.
Nasıl ondan korumak? Allah'a sığınarak.
And the only way to protect ourselves from that evil is to seek refuge in Allah Almighty.
Allah Azze ve Celle'nin evliyalarına, iyi insanlarına,
And one needs to seek protection by being with Allah Almighty's awliya and the good ones,
kim varsa öyle onlar beraber olmak.
and to accompany the good ones.
Yedullah ma'al cema'a, Allah Azze ve Celle diyor. Cemaatle olur. İyi insanlarla haşr neşr olur. Onlarla
Allah Almighty's protecting hand is over the community of the good ones.
oturur kalkın. İyi olmayanlardan
Try to be part of the community of the good ones and be together with the good ones,
uzak durun.
and stay away from bad people.
Kötü şey dinlemeyin.
Don't listen to bad words.
Kötü şeye bakmayın.
Don't listen to bad things. Don't look at bad things.
Şeyh Baba, Şeyh Efendi Şeyh Nazım Hazretleri onu devamlı söyledi.
And this is something Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to repeatedly say.
İşte şu adam çıktı, böyle bir şeyler diyor, kendi kafasına göre Kur'an yorumluyor, insanları yoldan çıkarıyor. Bakma diyor ona.
And when people used to report to Mawlana Shaykh Nazim, people who appeared in television who said these things or those things, and who make judgments based on their own thinking and based on their own likings, who manipulated religion, Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to say that don't listen to them, don't watch them.
Onun zaten sermayesi böyle rezillik yapıp millet ona dinlesin diye, acaba ne diyor diye ona hiç bakmayın.
Because those bad people, They live by you listening to them and by watching them, and this is what they rely on and what they depend on is to get people's attention.
İnsan iyi insanlarla insan olur.
Therefore, do not pay attention to bad ones and do not listen to what they say. In order to become a good person, you need to be with good people.
Kötü insanlarla hayvanın derecesine bile ulaşmaz. Onların adetleri, usulleri değişmez. İnsanın değişir.
And that is what distinguishes us from animals. Animals are animals, but we as humans can decide on how we want to be, whether good or bad. And it is that by us being with the good ones, that we become good people.
10 sene önceki insan şimdikinden daha edepliydi.
If you look at the people in former times, even 10 years ago, people 10 years ago were much better behaved than the people today.
20 sene önceki insan şimdikinden daha edepliydi.
People 20 years ago had far better manners and were much better than people today.
Ondan önceki her geçtiğimiz vakit insan iyiye değil kötüye gidiyor.
And as time gradually passes by, people become worse and worse. They do not become better and better.
Ne için gidiyor? Çünkü kötüyü göre normal diye sayıyor.
Why is that? Because as time passes by, more and more bad things appear and people see more and more bad things and they're getting used more and more to bad things, and bad things become normal.
Normal değildir.
But badness and evil is never normal.
Bu yapılan şeyler anormaldir. Normal olan temizliktir.
What is normal is to be clean and good.
İyiliktir, güzelliktir.
What is normal is goodness. What is normal is beauty and cleanliness.
Kötülük, arsızlık, hayasızlık, onlar iyi değil.
Badness, evil, shamelessness, these are not good things, and these are not normal.
İnsana fayda vermez.
And badness does not give benefit to people.
Kötülük hiçbir zaman insana fayda vermezdi.
Badness has never been to the advantage of people.
İşte biraz nefsimizi tatmin edelim diyorlar bazıları.
People say, but we need to give in to our egos and to satisfy our egos, they say.
Nefsimizi köreltelim, ondan sonra yaparız. Köreltemezsin. Ateşe benzin atarsan söndürebilir misin? Daha beter.
But you cannot extinguish the fire of your ego by giving in to your ego. If you add fuel to the fire, that fire is not going to extinguish. It is just going to get worse and worse.
Daha fazla artar. Sen attıkça daha fazla.
And the more you give in to your ego, the more you add fire, the more you add fuel to the fire, and the worse things become and the worse your ego becomes.
Söndüreyim derece atıyorsun benzin, mazot. Bunlar söndürecek şeyler değil. Söndürecek şeyler Allah'a sığınmak.
Fuel is not going to extinguish fire, and fuel is not going to satisfy your ego. The only protection from your ego is by seeking protection with Allah Almighty.
İyilerle beraber olmak.
The only protection from your ego is being with the good ones.
Namazına, niyazına, ailene bakmak.
To seek protection from your ego means to look after your family, to fulfill your religious obligations, and to pay attention the way you live in accordance with Allah Almighty's orders.
Dışarıya bakarsan bir fayda değil, devamlı zarara girmiş olursun.
However, if you constantly try to satisfy your ego, on the other side, you will not be obtaining any benefit. Instead, you will be harming and damaging yourself.
Bu zamanın tehlikeli sularında boğulursun.
If you give in to your ego, you will be drowned by the dangerous waters of this time.
Ahir zamanda yaşıyoruz.
Be aware that you live in the end of times.
Ahir zamanın her şeyi tehlikelidir.
And everything in the end of times is dangerous.
Ona karşılık da her şey büyük bir sana ona bırakıp da Allah rızası için olursan o da büyük bir nimettir, büyük bir sevap kazanmış olursun.
However, while things are so dangerous in this time, there are so many blessings and rewards to be gained. If you manage to leave your ego aside and to try to fulfill Allah Almighty's orders, and if you strive for making your Lord Allah Almighty to be happy with you, you will be rewarded by Allah Almighty considerably.
Nasıl Mekke'de her yaptığın, her namaz kıldığın, sadak verdiğin falan 100.000 defa daha kıymetli olduğu gibi,
and you will be rewarded if you manage to do good things and follow the orders of Allah Almighty in these difficult and dangerous end of times, then Allah Almighty will reward you multiple times, just like you are being rewarded, for example, 100 times for all the goodness you do while being in Mecca, if you pray there or give sadaqah.
Günah da yapsan gene aynı şekilde 100.000 defa o günah sayılır.
Of course, if you are in Mecca and if you commit a sin, that sin will also be multiplied 100,000 times.
Ama başka yerlerde aynıdır. Onun için şimdiki zaman ticaret zamanıdır.
So we now live in a time of trade, and while there's great badness to do, there's also great goodness and great rewards to attain.
Allah rızasının, Allah lütfuna mazhar olmak zamanıdır.
It is now the time where we can prove ourselves to obtain Allah Almighty's satisfaction and pleasure.
Bu her şeyin de bir sonu var.
For everything there is an end.
Hiçbir şey devamlı değil.
Nothing in this world will remain forever.
Dünyanın da sonu artık yaklaştı.
And this world too is approaching its end.
Çünkü bu gördüğümüz teknolojiydi, şuydu buydu, onlar da hepsini Allah Azze ve Celle vakti geldi.
And those things we now witness, such as technology, are things that come into being and into appearance by the permission of Allah Almighty.
Onların şeyleri açıldı. Yoksa binlerce sene insanoğlu yok şunu öğrendik, yok bunu yavaş yavaş öğreniyoruz. Öyle, o yavaş yavaş öğrenmekten değil de Allah'ın izni ancak şimdi geldi.
And people may have studied for 1,000 years, and they may have never accomplished what is now possible and what has now emerged, like technology. And the only reason why these things are emerging is because Allah Almighty opened that door and gave the permission for those things to come into being.
Bu 100 seneden beri, 150 seneden beri insanoğluna bu kapıyı açtı.
It is Him, Allah Almighty, who opened the door for 150 years, for 100 years now.
Teknoloji kapısını.
And He Almighty opened that door of technology.
Ondan şimdi dünyayı iyicene hallettiler. Bir şey kalmadı artık dünyanın.
And now they did everything that could be done in this world. What else remains to be done in this world?
İstifade edecek ne ağaç kaldı, ne toprak kaldı, ne su kaldı.
There's no tree to leverage any longer. There's no water that they have not touched upon. There's nothing yet that has not been exploited by humankind.
Her şeyi bitirdiler.
They have finished up this entire world.
O bitirince de tabi Allah Azze ve Celle tam kullandılar, artık bu işe yaramaz. Buna temizlemek için sahip gönderecek.
And as people have now consumed everything and have finished up everything, the time has now come that Allah Almighty will send the one who will clean everything.
İlk başta manevi temizlik olduktan sonra
First of all, there will be a spiritual purification.
ötekisi hiçbir zorluk yok onda. Hiçbir Allah Azze ve Celle zor diye bir şey yok.
And for him, Allah Almighty, there's nothing difficult, there's nothing impossible.
Şeyh Nazim Hazretleri derdi ki en büyük kötülük bu binalarda da betondur diyor.
And for example, one bad thing which is harmful, as Mawlana Shaykh Nazim used to repeatedly say, are these tall buildings made of concrete?
Bu beton binaları sahip geldikten sonra, Mahdi Aleyhisselam geldikten sonra manevi temizlik olacak. Ondan sonra bu beton binalar bir gecede hepsini yerinden söküp okyanusa atacaklar.
These amassments of concrete are harmful to humankind, and when Mahdi al-Islam comes and when he will have cleaned people spiritually, he will start cleaning this world, and he will remove within a single night those buildings made of concrete and remove them from their places and throw them into the seas.
Onun yerine eski usul güzel evler yapıp bununla beraber her şey temizlenmiş olur.
And instead of these concrete buildings will then be replaced by natural houses.
Mahdi Aleyhisselam'ın dünya esas haline gelmiş olur.
And this world will transform itself with Mahdi al-Islam. Mahdi al-Islam will transform this world back into its natural state.
Esas hali Allah Azze ve Celle yarattığı vakit temiz, her tarafı güzel olarak yaratmış Allah Azze ve Celle.
And thus Mahdi al-Islam will transform this world into its natural, beautiful and clean state as it was created by Allah Almighty, because Allah Almighty created this world clean and beautiful and pure.
Mahdi Aleyhisselam gelince de aynı şekilde olur.
And when Mahdi al-Islam comes, this world will again be in this good state again.
Yani kıyametten önce bu olacak.
This will happen before the day of judgment.
O da bir 30-40 sene kadar. Ondan sonra zaten gene insanlar azacak.
And then after 30-40 years, people will again go wild.
Kıyamet kopacak ondan sonra.
But then the last day will be, and the day of judgment will come.
Onun için bu vakte sabretmek herkese fayda eder.
So there's goodness and blessing in now being patient,
İyi insanlarla olmak
and there's blessing in being with good people,
daha en iyi fayda odur.
and that is the greatest goodness to benefit from, is to be with good people,
Bir de sabretmek, Allah yolunda gitmek.
and to be patient and to follow the way of Allah Almighty with steadfastness,
Başkasına fazla karışmamak.
and do not interfere with others too much.
Nasibi olan alıyor. Nasip olmadıktan sonra istediğin gibi, istediğin kadar uğraş.
And everyone follows their way as they have been destined by Allah Almighty, and those who have been destined to follow this good way and to receive the blessings of this way, they will do so by the decree of Allah Almighty.
Ki insanlara doğruyu göstereyim, şunu göstereyim. Allah hidayet verdikten sonra bakıyorsun insanlar ta nerelerden kalkıp geliyorlar, şaşırıp kalıyorsun.
It is Him, Allah Almighty, who guides people onto the right way, and there are people who say, I want to do this and I want to make these efforts to guide people, in the end, we must know that it is Him, Allah Almighty, who guides people to the right way. And if He Almighty grants guidance to a person, and we become witness of it, that we see people coming from all kinds of places, from distant and remote places, that you are surprised how they heard and learned about this, but that is Allah Almighty's guidance.
Allah bizi murad ettikten sonra oluyor.
And all things happen as Allah Almighty desires and wills them to happen.
Allah salihlerle beraber kalalım.
May Allah Almighty make us to be with His good and sincere servants.
Allah insanlara hidayet versin.
And may Allah Almighty guide humanity.
Hidayet Allah'tandır. Bizim elimizden bir şey gelmez.
And guidance is only from Allah Almighty, and we cannot guide people.
ومن الله التوفيق. الفاتحة.